Hello, everybody. My name is Happy, and I'd like to welcome you all to my History Reaction channel. Well, today we're going to be taking a look at every president's favorite music by Mr. Beat. As always, I will include a link to the original video down in the description below, excuse me. And I encourage you to head over to Mr. Beat and show him a little love and appreciation if you like what you see here. You know, recently I did Kunk on Britain, specifically the World War I to World War II period, and I made some comments on war songs and some of the ones that I learned from my grandfather, who was a World War II veteran, and just how sometimes they can reflect the culture and the attitudes and the beliefs of people at a given time. Music and art and literature, all of that, those are lenses that we can look at history through that can give us insight into the way people were thinking, the way they were feeling. So when we look at presidents and see what their favorite songs or types of music were, we can learn a little bit more about them, as well as about the time in which they lived. So I'd like to see what Mr. Beat has to tell us about the president's favorite music. And I'll see how many of these songs I know. I will probably know more of the old songs than I will of the recent presidents. That's my prediction. So let's see how accurate that is.
This video is sponsored in part by Omaze. My name really is Mr. Beat, and I absolutely love music.
Yes.
I rarely make it through a day without listening to some of my favorite sick beats. I even have a rare condition called involuntary beatbox syndrome.
Okay.
See?
Yeah.
But
I have a tendency to break out into dance if I hear music. It's true. And I'm not saying I'm a good dancer, but I cannot sit still when I'm listening to music. I have a hard time doing it. You know, people at work used to ask me, why don't you listen to music while you're working? You can do that. I'm like, because I would be dancing all over the place if I did. And so, yeah. I get it, Mr. Beat, I get it.
it's not just me. Around half of you watching this video right now love music so much that you literally get the chills when listening to some songs. Your heart rate increases. Your pupils dilate. Your body temperature increases. You may even, dare I say, dance.
That's
Simply
me.
Put, you...
And there is evidence, quite a bit of it in fact, that music can help with certain medical conditions, including things like Alzheimer's, and I can testify for that. I spent a year and a half as the sole caretaker of my grandmother as she descended deeper and deeper into Alzheimer's. I had to stay here in the house with her 24/7 for about a year and a half. Couldn't leave the house, couldn't leave her alone. Just wasn't worth it. It's a very rural house surrounded by canyons. If she wandered off, which she tried to do several times, she would have easily gotten herself killed. So somebody had to be here 24/7 to keep an eye on her. And one thing I discovered really early on is if I got on my cello or my balalaika or my electric keyboard or any of the other mini instruments I have around here, I collect weird and exotic instruments. I have a accordion, tambourine, a bodhran from Ireland, the drum. I've got a violin that's shaped like a dollar sign. I don't know why. I've got a steel guitar, or a pedal steel, excuse me. I've got a guitar. I've got an electric acoustic bass, a Celtic harp, and I did say the bagpipes, right? An Irish tin whistle, some maracas. And I can play all of them to some degree or the other. Some better than others. I played cello all the way through middle school and high school and 2 years in grade school. So that used to be my best. I'm probably just about as good now on a balalaika, and I can do passably on an electric keyboard, and not quite passably on a piano by itself. I can do it, but I struggle. I just never got that great, but that's all beside the point. I don't even remember where I was going with this. I did tell you I was prone to rambling. Oh yeah, Alzheimer's. One thing I noticed is when I started practicing music, she'd start coming back. I saw that several times where she would be completely gone. either zoned out or hallucinating, talking to people who weren't here, or having really bizarre tantrums or other kind of weird behaviors. If I start trying to play on the keyboard for a while or playing a cello, she would start coming out of it sometimes, often, in fact, to where she could have somewhat rational conversations and talk about her memories and her past. But soon after I'd stop playing, she'd go right back into the funk. And so I did some research on it, and there's quite a bit of research on the topic of how music can help people with things like Alzheimer's relieve some of their symptoms. And I've seen it for myself. I absolutely believe it. And when I think about it, like last week, in that Philomena Kunk video, I was singing some songs that my grandfather taught me. That was 50 years ago or more. More than that, probably. I was probably 6 or 7 when he taught me those, or younger. Probably younger. And I can still remember a lot of the lyrics to this day. I couldn't remember much else from that time period, but I can remember the lyrics. I can remember lyrics from songs that I heard, 50, 55 years ago. Nothing else that I know of sticks in the head as well as music. And so I get where Mr. Beat's coming from, but this is going to be a long video, and I'm rambling already, so let's get back to it.
Get that dopamine hit that makes the experience of listening to music similar to taking a drug. But even if you're the other half watching this right now who don't get the chills listening to music, it doesn't mean you don't like music. In fact, various studies have shown that a majority of humans regularly listen to music.
Yep.
Hey, I love music, but can you please turn that down? Thank you. Anyway, as I said earlier, I'm Mr. Beats, so how about American presidents? Yep, in this video, we're going to look at the music habits of every single president in American history. More importantly, we'll try to learn their favorite type of music, and maybe even their favorite song or band, although much of that information apparently is classified. And we'll see if they perform music themselves. Did they enjoy singing? Did they play a musical instrument?
Comes to mind right now, Jefferson was famously in love with music. He played the fiddle. He loved to sing. Obama made lists of his favorite movies, his favorite music, and things like that. I know he did that. I want to see what he comes up with. I do know some songs that were well liked by some of the presidents, so hopefully we agree on them.
And we shall once again go in chronological order.
So
that means first up is...
I used to have I probably still have it in one of my boxes around here, a collection of American folk songs. And when I say American, I'm using that term loosely. Songs that were popular in America as folk music from the colonial period all the way up until the 19th century. And it had a lot of songs, and it had a brief summary of all the histories of each of these songs. And they talked about some of these were popular by this president or that president. So that's why I think I know some of these. I used to play a lot of those on my instruments, so hopefully I'll know a few of these.
Georgi Wash Ein Ton.
George Washington. Yep, the old Darby Ram.
George Washington. Washington
that one I know.
Loved music. He once wrote, quote, "Nothing is more agreeable
he was known to be a dancer too.
Ornamental than good music." He loved to dance, and he loved ballads. His favorite song was probably The Derby Ram.
Dear. You ever did? Yeah. Yeah, I love that song. That's a fun song. As I was going to Derby on the market day, I spied the biggest ram, sir, that ever was fed on hay. And indeed, sir, it's true, sir, I never could tell a lie. And if you'd been to Derby, you'd have seen it the same as I. He was known to sing that to his grandkids.
And there are multiple accounts of him singing it to folks.
Yes.
John Adams. I couldn't find any evidence that Adams liked music. However, his son dug music.
Okay.
More on that in a bit. Thomas Jefferson.
A lot.
Oh, Jefferson
He
loved
loved
music.
Oh,
Once
yeah.
saying that music, quote, is the favorite passion of my soul, and fortune has cast my lot in a country where it is in a state of deplorable barbarism.
How
It's well
dare
known that
he.
he was pretty good at the violin, playing it throughout most of his life. During his college days,
He also played the cello. And pretty sure there was one other instrument, maybe the harpsichord. I don't remember. I know there were 3 instruments that he was said to be proficient in. The violin and the cello for sure. The violin was his favorite by far. Let's see what else he got to say, then I might add more.
he practiced the violin 3 hours a day, and he regularly performed at small gatherings. He also played the cello and clavichord. Apparently, Jefferson also loved to sing, and often sang as he traveled, as you
Yeah, there are quite a few written accounts of him singing as he traveled from place to place.
may already know. Jefferson donated his personal library to start the Library of Congress. Well, much of that library had music books.
Yes, it did.
He had a diverse taste in music. While he loved Mozart,
I know he attended several Mozart performances while he was in France. Oh, and he loved Vivaldi. He had a huge collection of Italian Baroque music.
Haydn, Vivaldi, and Handel, his favorite composer was Arcangelo Corelli. That said, he also dug American folk songs.
Right.
James.
He liked Scottish airs as well. Trying to think, of the Auld Grey Robin and Roslyn Castle were 2 that I know of that he really loved. And it's probably not a coincidence that all of his sons by Sally Hemings were fiddle players. One of them actually made his living after he gained his freedom as a professional fiddle player. I suspect I know where he learned to play it.
Madison. There is no evidence that Madison loved music, despite him owning this cool crystal flute that was saved from the White House before the British burnt it to the ground during the War of 1812.
We should mention, honorable mention, wasn't a president, but Franklin had a glass harmonica, which is just a beautiful sounding instrument. If you've never seen them, have you ever seen people do play the glass, play glasses with wet fingers? That's basically what a glass harmonica is, except that it's bent by itself. It's a long pole with different sized tiers that you can wet your fingers and play. It's really ethereal sounding music, and he had one of those. Continuing.
James Monroe. Yeah, there's also no evidence that Monroe loved music either. He owned pianos, but there's no evidence he ever played any of them. John Quincy Adams. Though his father wasn't big into music, the younger Adams was definitely into it. And yes, he actually played the flute. In fact, he was known to participate in often drunken late-night jam sessions with his buddies in college, and I just love this quote by him. Quote, "I am extremely fond of music, and by dint of great pains have learnt to blow very badly the flute. I console myself with the idea of being an American, and therefore not susceptible of great musical powers. Under his presidency, Hail to the Chief was played for the very first time. He even wrote his own songs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Although I couldn't find out specifically what his favorite song was, nor even what his favorite type of music was. Andrew Jackson. Jackson dug folk music quite a bit. He played the guitar. He even played banjo because, of course, he did.
Of course he did,
One of his favorite songs was Auld Lang Syne, which he regularly requested to be performed at parties he hosted.
I want to say he also liked Auld Rosin the Bow, but I could be I know one of the presidents in this era did, but I'm not sure if it was him or not. So, yeah, everybody knows Auld Lang Syne.
Martin Van Buren. I couldn't find any evidence that Van Buren was into music. He did own a piano, though. William Henry Harrison. Well, I couldn't find any evidence that Harrison was into music either. However, he also owned a piano, apparently. I guess pianos are just furniture to some folks. Okay, here we go. Now we're talking.
All right,
John
who's next?
Tyler. Like Jefferson before him, Tyler was a violinist.
Okay.
And a darn good one. His dad taught him how to play. He stopped playing after going into politics, though, but after leaving politics, he returned to it, regularly playing duets with his wife Julia, who was a guitarist. Tyler also loved going to musicals. James Polk. No evidence Polk enjoyed
I gotta say, I don't see him liking music.
Didn't, but it just doesn't appear to be the case. He also never tried playing any musical instruments, although he also owned a piano. Zachary
Did you notice they all own the same piano? How amazing is that?
Taylor. No evidence Taylor enjoyed music, but go ahead and Google Zachary Taylor's favorite song. The first search result is great.
It's gonna be one of the songs that you did, isn't it, Mr. Beat? I'll be right back. I called it. The first result you get if you Google Zachary Taylor's favorite song is the Zachary Taylor song by Mr. Beat. If you guys aren't familiar with Mr. Beat, he has done a lot of presidential songs. So, I don't think he wrote that at a time when Zachary Taylor could have appreciated it, though. Not unless he's a little older than I thought he was.
Millard Fillmore. Now, Fillmore did appear to dig music. When he was in the White House, he brought 3 pianos with him, and he invited many musicians there to perform for him. Franklin Pierce owned a piano, but didn't dare play it, and probably not that much into music either. Okay, from now on, let's just go ahead and assume that every future president owned a piano.
Yes.
Because they pretty much all did, whether they actually played it or not. James Buchanan. There is evidence Buchanan did enjoy music, for he regularly invited musicians to the White House. In 1860, Buchanan invited the pianist Thomas Green Bethune, commonly known as Blind Tom, since he was really blind, yet amazing at the piano, to perform at the White House. He was the first African-American artist to perform there. Abraham Lincoln. Even though he never played a musical instrument, Lincoln loved music. He especially loved going to operas, and his favorite was Martha by Friedrich von Flotow. He also regularly invited musicians into his home. For Lincoln, music was therapy, and he often teared up listening to it. Andrew Johnson. There is no evidence that Johnson enjoyed music. In fact, he absolutely hated having fun, period.
I was going to say, look at that face. This is not a guy who enjoys anything, I think.
Just kidding. Ulysses Grant. Grant once said, quote, I only know two
of them, and one of them is Yankee Doodle,
and the other one is
it.
Grant was tone deaf, meaning he was unable to recognize differences of musical pitch accurately. Likely due to this, Grant didn't like music much at all. It was basically noise to him. Rutherford Hayes. Well, it's a bit hard to tell, but I'd say Hayes did like music, or at least he loved his wife Lucy enough to put up with it. Lucy was a wonderful singer and guitarist, and she invited lots of musicians to perform at White House events, so Hayes seemed to dig gospel music. James Garfield.
I would imagine the same there.
There is also no evidence that Garfield enjoyed music.
I would imagine he probably liked gospel.
Okay then. Chester Arthur. Although I couldn't verify this for sure, Arthur possibly played the banjo, and he also seemed to be a bit of a music snob, urging John Philip Sousa to not perform Hail to the Chief for him, but instead to come up with a more, quote, dignified song. Ooh. So yeah, I think Arthur liked music. Grover Cleveland. Nope, he definitely wasn't into music that much. Benjamin Harrison. Well, it's also hard to tell with Harrison, as he did host musical events at the White House, but since there's no evidence he liked music for the...
Yeah, but a lot of these presidents invite musicians to the White House. That may be as a way to, bolster their image and to create social environments, and you know what I'm trying to say. It's a social setting to social occasions. It may not because they liked music specifically.
Purposes of this video, we will assume he wasn't into it that much. What the heck is up with presidents in the late 1800s not really getting into music much? Well, I can tell you that's about to dramatically change in the 1900s, especially with the invention of recorded music.
Yep.
William McKinley. Yeah, McKinley dug music. He often invited the United States Marine Band and other musicians to the White House while he was president. He also enjoyed dancing if he wanted to. In fact, he could leave your friends behind. McKinley and his wife, Ida, introduced the American two-step dance to the White House at a Valentine's Day party in 1901. Theodore Roosevelt. Yes, Roosevelt dug music. His favorite song apparently was There'll Be a Hot Time in the Old Town Tonight, which ended up being the theme song for his Rough Riders in the Spanish-American War.
There'll be a hot time in the old town tonight. Yep, that's a good one. I approve, Teddy.
Roosevelt also liked to mess around with a harmonica.
Interesting.
William Howard Taft. According to my research, Taft was the first president to bring a record player into the White House. He played all kinds of music on it, but his favorite record was La Bohème, an opera composed by Giacomo Puccini. Woodrow Wilson. Wilson loved music. He also played violin and sang growing up. In fact, in college, he was in the Glee Club. As he got older and more involved with politics, he apparently stopped playing the violin, but he never lost his passion for music. As president during World War I, he once said, quote, "Music now, more than ever before, is a national need." Wilson also regularly invited musicians to perform at the White House.
I can't believe I disagreed with Wilson, but I agree with that.
Warren Harding. Harding likely played more musical instruments than any other president. He once told his friends, quote, "I played every instrument but the slide trombone and the E-flat cornet." Well, we don't know exactly how good he actually was at any of those instruments, but we do know he was in different bands growing up. He was a big brass instrument guy in particular, although he dabbled with woodwinds and percussion. When he was 19, one of his bands got third place in the Ohio State's Band Festival and won $200.
Cool.
Calvin Coolidge. Coolidge also messed around with a harmonica. However, I don't think he particularly dug going to concerts or listening to records much.
Silent Cow, you wouldn't expect that much out of him.
Herbert Hoover. Hoover also invited many musicians to perform at the White House. Notably, he and his wife Lou were the first couple to invite a musician to play for a foreign head of state when they invited the harpist Mildred Dilling to perform for Praja-Hippock, the king of Siam. Hoover's favorite songs were, no joke, March No. 1 of the Pomp and Circumstance Marches by Sir Edward Elgar.
Yep. Another one most people know.
The one. Also, the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Oh, yeah. Another one everybody knows.
Wait for it. The Star-Spangled Banner.
I've said this before, but I love my country. I hate our national anthem. I loathe that anthem. I just do. I don't like the melody. I don't like the lyrics, especially if you get into the later lyrics. There's just nothing about that song that I like. I would far rather the Battle Hymn of the Republic or America the Beautiful or heck, even This Land Is Your Land be national anthems, or even God Bless America for that matter, than the Star-Spangled Banner. Heck, Yankee Doodle, anything but that one. But that's just personal opinion.
I'm gonna guess that you've heard those songs before. Franklin Roosevelt. Just like Wilson, Roosevelt was in the Glee Club in college. He also played the piano and organ a bit. His favorite song was Home on the Range.
Oh, great choice.
Written by Dr. Brewster Higley.
I really love some of the later verses of that song in particular.
Said he also enjoyed the song Anchors Aweigh, the unofficial march song of the United States Navy, and the Yellow Rose of Texas.
Another good one.
Indeed, FDR might have been the first president to really love country music. And don't forget his Federal Music Project, which was part of a New Deal program that employed musicians, conductors, and composers during the Great Depression. Harry Truman. Not only did Truman play the piano, As president, he always had a piano by his desk, and he rarely passed by a piano without sitting down to play a quick tune. Today, you can hear some of his performances online. Here's a small sample. He also always had a radio by his desk and was the first president I found that actually listened to music on the radio. In terms of his music tastes, he was quite eclectic. He owned more than 680 records. He was actually kind of a music snob. In particular, Truman loved Johann Strauss waltzes and just about anything from George Gershwin and Claude Debussy. His favorite compositions included Chopin's Waltz in A-flat major, Opus 42, Mozart's Piano Sonata in A major, and Beethoven's Piano Concert No. 4 in G. As he got older, he talked trash about newer music, calling it, quote, modern noise, always preferring classical music over that modern nonsense, dang kids.
Yeah.
Dwight Eisenhower. Well, it's pretty easy to find out what Eisenhower's favorite music was. He literally released an album called The President's Favorite Music. Last I checked, there was only one copy left of it available on Amazon. It features mostly classical and traditional stuff. Also, on the Eisenhower Library website, you can find a list prepared by Eisenhower's staff and...
Okay, I want to take a look at this in detail here. America the Beautiful, I approve. My Bonnie Annie Laurie. I will lay me down and know that one. Army Blue, I don't know. Battle Hymn of the Republic, Deep River, Dixie. Drigo Serenade, don't know it. Greenland Icy Mountains, don't know that one. Going Home, no. God Bless America, Irving Berlin. I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen, that's a great one. Especially if you're an original series Star Trek fan. In the Evening by the Moonlight, In the Gloaming, those are good ones. It's the Army, I don't think I know that one. I Dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair. Juanita, Kiss Me Again, don't know that. The Last Roundup, I know that one, that's a good one. Good old cowboy song. Listen to the Mockingbird. Yeah, know that one. Listen to the Mockingbird, I believe was written by the same guy who wrote Whispering Hope. Lord's Prayer, Merry Widow Waltz is a good one. My Maryland, a good one. My Old Kentucky Home, little Stephen Foster there. Okay, I approve of his collection. Roses of Picardy, Old Man River, there's a good one. That was Rodgers and Hart, I think. Swanee River, another Foster song. Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. I didn't know that one was, oh yeah, he wasn't that long ago. That was what? Was that Smoke Gets in Your Eyes? Was that the Ink Spots or the Platters? I don't remember. That had the hit with it. Tramp, Tramp, Tramp. I mentioned that in the Philomena Kunk video. That one's been around since at least the Civil War, and it's been popular in every war since. Hunting Tonight and the Old Campground, I'm assuming what that one is. Wagon Wheels. I love Wagon Wheels. Interesting. I really approve of his list. Adestes fideles, regum triumphantus, venite ad Bethlehem. Claire de Lune, that's a good one. I like Claire de Lune. Indian Summer, that's a good one. I approve, Ike. I like Ike. I like his music. Popular melodies, Banks of the Wabash. On the banks of the Wabash, far away. What a Beautiful Morning, that's Rodgers and Hammerstein. Jingle, jingle, jingle. Not sure I know that. Green Sleeves, everybody knows Green Sleeves. It's been around forever. In the Still of the Night, that's another Ink Spots or Platters, or one of those groups like that, the doo-wop groups. You like doo-wop, I approve. Stardust, that's Hoagie Carmichael. Moonlight and Roses, that's a good one. Drink to Me Only with Thine Eyes. Yeah, I need to get his album. I like it. I approve. All right, I spent way too much time on that, but I want to see how many of those I know, and a surprising number of them. I actually like a lot of them. I approve of Ike. I like Ike.
Here it is. But yeah, there's a lot of classical music, folk music, gospel music, and even some Christmas music on there.
And there's some doo-wop. There's doo-wop. Anybody who likes doo-wop gets an A in my book.
Eisenhower was the first president to have a Broadway performance in the White House, and throughout his presidency, military band performances there became much more frequent. Oh yeah, and Eisenhower also played harmonica a bit. John F.
That doesn't surprise me. I think a lot of soldiers played the harmonica, so I think that was pretty common during the war years. It was a small instrument that you could carry around. He wasn't out in the field, but it was an instrument that was kind of associated with the military, especially in World War II. My grandfather, that's the only instrument that actually, no. He played harmonica and something else. Clarinet, I think, or sax. It might have been sax. I really don't remember. He didn't play when I knew him. He showed me how to play the harmonica, and he told me he learned to play it during the war.
Kennedy. Well, he took piano lessons as a kid, but Kennedy was more about listening to music. And similar to Truman, he had an eclectic taste. First of all, he loved jazz and brought the first jazz ensemble, the Paul Winter Sextet, to play in the White House on November 19th, 1962. Kennedy also hosted many classical concerts at the White House. His favorite thing to listen to often was Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun by Claude Debussy. JFK also really dug Irish music.
Oh, I love Irish
anything
music.
with bagpipes. Today, the biggest music legacy associated with him is the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts in Washington, D.C.
Now, the question is, does he like genuine Irish music or Irish American music? Because they're kind of different. I like both, but there is a distinct difference between the two.
Which hosts all kinds of concerts by some of the most gifted artists from around the world. Lyndon Johnson. Johnson really enjoyed musicals like Oklahoma and Hello Dolly, which actually inspired one of his campaign songs, Hello Lyndon, by Ed Ames.
Hello Lyndon.
He also dug country music and loved Roy Rogers.
Oh, yeah. My mother loved Roy Rogers too, but Gene Autry more, but Roy Rogers. We had to go to the Roy Rogers Museum once. I didn't particularly care for it, but I liked Roy Rogers. I liked the Sons of the Pioneers, but I didn't like that he had trigger stuff. I remember being really upset about that when I was a kid, when I found out. That just offended me for some reason.
Especially his version of the song, Don't Fence Me In.
Oh, yeah, great song. Great song. I love Don't Fence Me In. I'm over on my gaming channel. I'm going through Fallout 4, and that's one of the songs that's on the Fallout 4 soundtrack as well. But I've always loved Don't Fence Me In. That's another Irving Berlin song. That guy wrote millions of songs. I swear he wrote millions of songs.
Of the presidents, LBJ was probably the best dancer. He absolutely loved dancing. And when he was on the dance floor, you'd better watch out. Richard Nixon. I mentioned how good Truman was at the piano. Well, Nixon was even better. But don't take my word for it. There's lots of footage of him playing the piano online. Here's a sample.
Yep, that's pretty good. Better than I can do.
Nixon also played the accordion, violin, clarinet, and
Impressive.
saxophone. And don't be fooled by this picture he took with Elvis. Nixon preferred classical music over rock and roll. Specifically, he was a big fan of Tchaikovsky.
I absolutely approve. Tchaikovsky's probably my favorite of the classical composers.
Also dug Lawrence Welk and apparently Johnny Cash, inviting him to perform.
That's quite a difference between the two. Although I really loved the Lawrence Welk show growing up. My other grandmother, not the one that I talked about earlier, but my father's mother used to babysit me all the time, and she'd sit me down in front of Lawrence Welk. That was her idea of babysitting. So I grew up on Lawrence Welk. And most people associate with him with older music. That's accurate to a degree, but he was always about half a generation behind. So he kept up with the times, just delayed a little bit. But when you get into like the 70s, he's playing music from the late 50s, early 60s, and so on, moving ever forward. Johnny Cash, who doesn't like Johnny Cash? Most people do. Well, a lot of people do anyway.
At the White House, Gerald Ford. I don't think Ford was the biggest fan of music, but his favorite type of music was jazz. That said, he did have rock stars like George Harrison and Peter Frampton visit the White House when he was president. Jimmy Carter.
All right.
Many people don't know this, but Carter is the only president in American history to play the ukulele, although I'm not sure how good he has ever been at it. His favorite types of music include jazz, country, and southern rock. He was a big fan of Willie Nelson. When he ran for president and after he became president, he famously just hung out with rock and country stars. He became good friends with Greg Allman, for example. There's even a documentary that goes into all this called Jimmy Carter, Rock and Roll President.
I think music is the best proof that people have one thing in common no matter where they live, no matter what the language they speak.
Despite these rock and country star connections, the only song that he has mentioned as a standout favorite over the years is the Navy hymn, Eternal Father Strong to Save.
Yes. He was very religious, and he was a former Navy man, so that makes sense.
Ronald Reagan. I also don't think Reagan was the biggest fan of music, but he did have a favorite song, Nancy with the Laughing Face by Jimmy Van Heusen and Phil Silvers. The most famous version of it is by Frank Sinatra. He also seemed to have a soft spot for the Beach Boys and invited them to play at the White House. After Reagan left the presidency, he apparently picked up the harmonica. George H.W. Bush. Bush Sr. was a legit country music fan. Once
I knew that.
Quote, country music gives us a window on the real world, and when I want to feel a certain surge of patriotism, or turn nostalgic, or even when I need a little free advice about Saddam Hussein, I turn to country music. He even attended the Country Music Awards in 1991. Bill Clinton. It's well known that Clinton is good at the saxophone. As a presidential candidate in 1992, he won the audience over by playing Heartbreak Hotel on sax with the Arsenio Hall Show Band. In fact, you could say the performance was a turning point in his campaign as he surpassed his opponent, the aforementioned George H.W. Bush, in the polls right after it. Similar to Jimmy Carter, Clinton has hung out with several rock stars over the years, from Bono from U2 to David freaking Bowie. Here are Clinton's 20 favorite songs of all time.
Okay, let's take a look at this. The Present to Jehovah, Fred, I don't know that one. My Funny Valentine, I do know. Summertime, I know. More religious and gospel music than I would have expected, honestly. Brown Eyed Girl, of course, everybody knows that one, I think. Or at least a lot of people here in the States do. Bill Coulter, interesting. Bridge Over Troubled Waters, my mother loved that one. There'll Never Be Another You. English folk song Sweet. I'd like to know what was in that Sweet.
It's a pretty eclectic list, although Clinton has always been the most fond of rock and roll from the 1950s and 1960s. He invited so many rock stars to the White House as president. Big names. Huge. I mean, look at this list. He once joked that one of the nicest things about being president was that nearly any musician could come perform for him. George W. Bush. Like his dad, Bush Jr. loves country music, but more newer stuff, obviously. He digs George Jones, Alan Jackson, and Kenny Chesney. His likely two favorite songs, though, are not country: Centerfield by John Fogerty and Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison.
Another Brown Eyed Girl.
Obama. Obama can sing. Here is some evidence of that. And we know more about Obama's favorite music than any other president in American history. It helps that he has released several playlists of his favorite songs. Here are some tweets announcing them. His playlists are quite eclectic, featuring hip-hop to reggaeton, to R&B, to country, to even indie rock. Oh, and these playlists are still widely available online. Regarding one specific band or artist, well, I couldn't find one he liked the most. He just likes them all. Donald Trump. While it's well known that Trump has been friends with several musicians over the years, including lately Kid Rock, it's less clear how passionate he is about music. He did tell Rolling Stone magazine he digs classic rock, including the Rolling Stones and Aerosmith.
Aerosmith is terrific. Steven Tyler, that whole group is just a terrific group.
He also reportedly likes Eminem. He once said that Is That All There Is, a song made famous by Peggy Lee in 1969, was his favorite song. Notably, Trump also signed the Music Modernization Act, which helps musicians and songwriters get paid more for their music from streaming platforms. Joe Biden. Believe it or not, Joe Biden and his wife Jill also once released a playlist. It wasn't as eclectic as Obama's, but still a diverse list nonetheless. He mostly likes music from the 1960s and 1970s, but has also mentioned he likes newer artists like Coldplay and Lady Gaga. That all said, apparently his favorite band of all time is one you maybe haven't heard of, the Chieftains.
Chieftains, I know the Chieftains.
Irish folk band that has been around since the 1960s.
Yeah,
He once
I love
told
the Chieftains.
magazine he would sing their songs if he, quote, had any musical talent. He announced his favorite song in his inaugural address, of all places. It's American Anthem by Gene Shear. So that's it. That's the lowdown of every American president's musical leanings. Overall, there's evidence that 29 presidents seem to enjoy music, at least to a certain degree, and 16 presidents seemed more indifferent or even disliked music. Oh, and as some of you already know, I'm a musician myself, and I've actually written and recorded songs about every single president in American history, excluding Joe Biden, since he's still currently in office. You can check out all of them by checking out the link in the description of this video. Oh no, sorry about that.
I think
let's
we're
go ahead
done.
and end this video.
All right. I think we're done here. That was fun. A lot of them, obviously, we don't know for sure. Some of the more recent ones have been releasing lists of favorites, so it's not surprising we know more about them. But, yeah, I was really impressed with Ike's list. I knew almost every song on that, and I liked the vast majority of them. And I agree completely with Biden on the Chieftains. I love the Chieftains. Anyway, there we have it. Every president's favorite music. I hope you guys had some fun with that. I know I did. Maybe I'm the only one that liked it, but that's fine. I'll see y'all next time in either case. And until then, bye-bye.